is a story about the places where wild animals make their homes. It's not a story about wild animals that live in faraway places like Africa, or about lions that live in a zoo. It's not about pet animals like dogs and cats that live in people's houses either. And it's not about farm animals like cows and pigs that live on farms in the country. It's about the wild animals that make their homes very close to where you live, even if you live in a big city. Better than a bee.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Hey, let's go home and make some cookies. That will make you feel better.
Okay.
You know, this Trapper Keeper would be perfect if it was like light purple.
Light purple? It's fine the way it is. I like that color.
Well, Rebecca has light purple. I don't see why I can't have it.
Rebecca.
Wait, stop. I gotta show you something. This is great.
What are you gonna do?
I learned it in gym class.
You're not gonna do anything stupid, are you?
No, of course not.
Well, Tammy, what? Tammy, what are you doing? Tammy! I swear, Tamara.
Look, a glass day. Jimmy Fargo's walking home this way. We gotta go home and change.
Come on. I swear, Tammy, you can be such a klutz. Wait a minute, Tammy. What's that peeping noise? Did you hear it?
Oh, yeah. Where's it coming from?
I don't know. I knew I heard something. Oh, Tammy. It's a little animal. I think it's a baby bird.
Wow. An eagle. A baby eagle. That's what it is.
I don't think it's an eagle. Whatever it is, it sure is making a lot of noise. It's probably hungry. I wonder where its mother is.
I know. Let's take it home and feed it and keep it for a pet.
Oh, Tammy, that's stupid. This isn't the kind of bird you can buy in a pet store. This bird doesn't belong in a cage. It lives here in our park. Besides, if we don't even know what kind of bird it is, then how do we know what to feed it?
Then what should we do?
I've got it. You stay here and keep an eye on it. I'll run home and call somebody, okay?
Okay.
Is that yours?
No, we just found it. Heather says we can't keep it. I think it's baby eagle. What do you think?
I doubt it's a baby eagle. How many eagles have you seen flying around Center City?
I called our city wildlife officer, Mr. Konishi, and he said to call the wildlife center when they take care of the wild animals.
Wild animals? You mean our baby bird is a wild animal? Doesn't look very wild to me.
Well, that's what the lady at the wildlife center said. And she said that it probably fell out of its nest and we should put it back in. It must have fallen out of this tree. Come on. Help me find the nest.
Wait a minute. You can't pick up the bird. When you touch a baby bird, it smells like your hand, and the mother won't go near it.
Let's just do what the wildlife center told us to do, okay?
All right, but I hope you know what you're doing.
I do. It must have fallen out of this tree. There it is! I found the nest! Look at it! Oh, it's so cute!
Oh, wow.
Tammy, what are you doing?
I'm putting it back in its nest, can I?
Will you be gentle with it? Okay, come on, be careful. Be careful.
Watch it.
Okay. Be really gentle with it.
Winston, will you give me a boost?
Yeah. Okay, good. Careful. Okay, now the wildlife lady said to get as far away from the nest as we can possibly get so the parents don't get frightened away by it.
Yeah.
Let's go watch from our kitchen window to see if they come back.
Okay. Yeah, and we could grab a snack.
Hey, Winston, let me have a look. No birds have even come near the nest. And we've been watching for 2.5 hours.
According to this bird book, so far we've seen some robins, some sparrows, and a lot of crows, but none have even come near the nest.
Well, maybe we should go get the baby bird and take it to the wildlife center. They said we should if the parents don't return in a couple of hours. How about you guys find a box to carry it in, and I'll leave a note for Mom.
Okay.
Watch out, they're hot.
Winston!
Be really careful with it.
Here, people got it.
So you have an owl. You think its wing is broken. Okay. Handle it as little as possible and bring it on into us, okay? Okay, thanks so much. Bye-bye. Can I help you?
Yeah, we called earlier about the baby bird. I'm Heather Stevenson, and this is my sister, Tamara Stevenson, but you can call her Tammy. And this is our friend, Winston Williams.
Winston T. Williams.
Well, I'm Dr. Simpson. I'm the veterinarian here at the Wildlife Center. Let's take a look at what we've got here. Ah, yes, a little baby robin.
Not a baby eagle?
No, this is a little robin. It's not more than a week old. It's called a nestling at this age when it can't fly. Now, did you wait for the mother or father to return to the nest before you brought it here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
2.5 hours.
Good. And did you watch from a distance so as not to frighten the parents if they did come back?
From the
Yes.
kitchen window.
Good. You did the right thing. I'm afraid something must have happened to its parents. Maybe they were hit by a car or eaten by another animal. Here at the Wildlife Center, we take care of injured or orphan animals like this until they're ready to go back out into the wild and take care of themselves. This little guy is peeping because he's hungry. He's probably thirsty, too. So, come on. I'm going to show you how we're going to take care of him until he's ready to go back outside, okay?
Okay.
Whoa!
Oh, wow.
Look at all those robins!
Cool.
Where'd they all come from?
Well, most of them were brought to us by people who weren't as smart as you. They didn't wait for the parents to return to the nest. They didn't realize they probably just went off to get food and would have been back in a few minutes if they had just waited. Come on, let's go. Just gonna check this little guy for parasites first. Yeah, he's good. Give it some of this because he's thirsty. There you go. There.
But how are you gonna feed it? If you touch it, it'll smell like a person's hand. No other birds will go near it, right?
No, that's not true, Winston. In fact, most birds have a very poor sense of smell. In fact, an owl will eat a skunk.
Ew.
We're just gonna feed it some of this special food for a while, and then we'll put it in with older robins, hoping that they'll feed it insects and worms until it's ready to fly again. The older robins are robins that have been injured and can't fly anymore, and they could never survive in the wild. So we keep them busy helping us feed the orphan baby birds.
But why couldn't we feed our baby robin at home and keep it for a pet?
No, Tammy. There's 2 reasons why that wouldn't be a very good idea. First of all, baby robins need to be fed every 20 minutes from sunup to sundown.
Whoa.
If you lined up all the worms that it eats in one day, it would be 11 feet long.
Good night. That's longer than this room.
That's right. Robin's parents make about 400 trips to a nest every day to feed and care for its young. Do you think you could do that?
Well, I guess not. I wouldn't have time to play with my friends, or go to school, or eat, or anything.
Right. Another reason why you wouldn't want to keep it as a pet is because robins are not pets. They're wild animals who live free, and they don't need people for food and shelter. They can take care of themselves. They're not pets like dogs and cats are. Dogs and cats are domesticated.
Domesticated?
Yeah, domesticated just means tame, not wild. Here we go. There. Great, all taken care of.
Wow, look at the horses. Horses are domesticated animals, right?
Right.
And so are cows and pigs and sheep, right?
That's right. Domesticated animals depend all their lives on people for food, shelter, and care. And they live in captivity, which means they live with people.
But what about our baby robin? Here it's dependent on people, but when it's ready to fly, you'll let it go. Will it be wild or domesticated?
Well, it's still going to be wild because we're not going to tame it. You see, while it's here, it's going to learn how to take care of itself. And the older robins are going to teach it how to do that. Sometimes when wild baby animals are fed by people and not by their real parents, they get imprinted on people. They get real confused and they think a person is its parent and it doesn't learn how to take care of itself. If your robin got imprinted on you or me, then it wouldn't know what other robins look like or what it needed to know to survive, like how to find worms. Do you think you could teach it how to find worms?
No.
Okay, ready to go on?
Yeah.
All right, let's go.
What would have happened to our baby robin if we left it on the ground in the park?
Well, if its parents didn't come back, it probably would have starved to death or been eaten by another animal.
Like that cat we saw.
That's right, a cat could have easily gotten it. Or other kinds of wildlife that live in the city might have gotten it too, like a raccoon or a skunk or other kinds of urban wildlife.
Urban wildlife? What's that?
Well, urban wildlife are wild animals that live in the city. Urban just means city.
You mean raccoons and skunks live in our city?
Surprising, isn't it?
Yes.
We have lots of wild animals that live in Center City.
Any real big wild animals, like bears?
Well, no bears, but we do have some deer that come into the city.
Deer? Really? You mean deer with really big antlers really live in Center City?
Yes, lots of them do. Last year we had about 300 deer come into the city. They like the special kind of plants that people have in their gardens. They also like to eat the lawn, too.
Yeah. One deer ate my mom's rose bush, and my mom was so upset. Remember, Tammy?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, whoa.
So, you mean wild animals live in our city?
Yes.
The robin lived in our park. So it's urban wildlife?
And so are the robins and sparrows and crows that live there, too.
That's right.
And the ducks and the pigeons and the gulls and the beetles, they're urban wildlife, too.
That's
And
right.
so are the lions and monkeys in our zoo.
Oh, wait a minute now. The animals that live in the zoo are not exactly urban wildlife.
I know,
What?
because they aren't really free. They rely on people to take care of them. That's why they live in captivity.
That's right. But there's a lot of animals that live in our city. You just have to know where to look. The reason you've never seen a raccoon or a skunk is because they're nocturnal, which means they mostly come out at night. In fact, let me show you an example of some wildlife here that's nocturnal, okay?
Okay.
All right. Hi, Sigrid.
Hello.
Brought some friends with me today.
Wow. Oh, my goodness.
Kids, come here a minute. I want you to meet Sigrid. Kids, these are my friends. This is Sigrid. She takes care of the birds here at the Wildlife Center.
Hi.
Nice to meet you,
Hi.
Sigrid.
Sigrid, could you go in and get the owl for us?
Sure.
Great.
Come on, little one. Come on, little one. Come on.
This is Barney, our barn owl. Barney's wings were injured by a car and he can't fly anymore. So we keep him here and take care of him and use him in our education programs to teach children like you about urban wildlife and wildlife habitat.
Habitat? What's a wildlife habitat?
Well, habitat just means home, and wildlife habitat is the homes where wild animals live.
Like the robins and squirrels and crows that live in the park. That's their habitat, right?
That's right. Part of Barney's habitat used to be the church steeple downtown. He used the steeple as shelter against bad weather. You see, different kinds of animals have different kinds of homes or habitats. But all animals' habitats have four things in common. They all need food to eat, water to drink, and shelter to hide from bad weather and danger, and space to move around safely and take care of their babies.
So just like people, we need food, water, shelter, and space too, right?
That's right.
So what does Barney eat in his habitat?
He's always thinking about food.
He eats mice and rats. He's a predator, which means he kills and eats other animals. Why don't we put Barney back in his cage now, and I'll take you and show you some other kind of predator that we have here at the Wildlife Center.
Okay.
Okay. Wow! An eagle. Look, Heather. A real bald eagle.
Incredible.
Oh, Tammy.
Let's talk softly so we don't disturb her. She's recovering from gunshot wounds, so she needs quiet so she can get well again. We call her Pearl because of her white head. She's very special to us. A fisherman found her down by the river on the ground, and she was nearly dead. So we did surgery on her, and fortunately she survived. Now we're just trying to get her ready so she can go back to her habitat and hunt her own fish and take care of herself again.
So that's why Pearl's a predator, because she catches fish to eat?
That's right. So as a predator, she's going to need fish in her habitat in order to survive. Now, some eagles eat other things like ducks or dead animals that they find. She has other special needs in her habitat, too, like very clean water. She needs tall trees for shelter and plenty of space to fly around in.
But she's so beautiful. Why would someone want to shoot her?
I don't know. Maybe they thought it was fun. But whoever shot her was breaking the law and they could have been arrested. All the birds you've seen today are protected by the law. In fact, most birds in the United States are protected. Why don't we leave her alone now and let her get some rest, okay? Okay, let's go.
Can we come back and see Pearl again?
And the owl? And our baby Robin, just to make sure it's all right?
Well, we're really pretty busy here at the Wildlife Center. We've got a lot of work to do, keeping the animals clean and healthy. But I guess you could come back for a visit and help us out a little bit.
All right.
Yeah, that'd be good. Okay. How's 9 o'clock Saturday? Is that good? Yeah, that's cool.
Perfect.
All
We'll
right.
be there.
Great. Okay, we'll see you then.
Okay,
All right,
goodbye.
bye-bye.
Bye.
Ciao.
Hi, Mrs. Simpson.
Hi, kids. You're right on time. Ready to get to work?
Yeah, we sure are.
What do? Remember last time we talked about the 4 things that all animals need in their habitats?
Yes, I remember. Habitat means the home or place where the wild animal lives. And every habitat has food to eat, water to drink,
And shelter to get away from bad weather and enemies.
And space to move around safely and raise their babies.
Very good. Okay, today you're going to help me feed and water some of the animals, and you're going to learn how different kinds of animals need different kinds of food, water, shelter, and space. Okay?
Okay.
Shall we start with your baby Robin?
How is he doing? Is he going to be all right?
Why don't you come on and find out for yourself?
All right.
Good night. Look at how big he got.
He's doing very well. He's not a nestling anymore. He's called a fledgling at this age when he's learning to fly. He eats about once an hour.
So then he'll need lots more worms and other insects in his new habitat when you let him go, right?
Mm-hmm.
And fresh water to drink.
That's right. Speaking of water, why don't you help me get started watering the animals today?
Okay.
For shelter, it can use the trees to make its nest and hide from enemies.
Yeah, how about space? How much space will he need?
Well, let's think about that for a minute. Would you want to live in a house where the bathroom and the kitchen were 10 miles apart?
No.
No way. Well, Robin doesn't want to live far from the things it needs either. Doesn't need a lot of space, really. Just enough to find its food and water and raise its young safely.
The park where we found it wasn't a very safe habitat if the parents got hit by a car, was it?
That's a good point, Tammy. You're absolutely right. We get a lot of animals brought to us who are injured by cars. It's a real dangerous thing for the wildlife in our city.
I saw a huge dead deer on the highway last year. Got hit by a truck.
Yeah. The roads are not only dangerous for the deer, but the deer are dangerous for the people who travel on the roads, too. You see, deer like to feed early morning and evening alongside the roads, and that's the time when most people are coming and going from work. Over 100 deer were killed on our roads last year, and a lot of people were hurt. You see, cars are called a limiting factor. Now, a limiting factor is something that limits or shortens the life of animals like your robin or deer or other wildlife that live in our city.
Another limiting factor could be that cat we saw. It could have eaten our baby robin.
That's right. Cats are a limiting factor for the birds in the city. All right, everybody, grab your bottles. Get ready?
Oh, rabbits! How cute! Rabbits need lots of carrots in their habitat. Right, Dr. Simpson?
Well, a rabbit would eat carrots if it found some in somebody's gardens, but actually they ate a lot of different kinds of plants, like young tender leaves, buds, berries, green twigs, clovers. Hi, James. James is going to feed the rabbits now.
I've never seen any rabbits in our park before.
Well, that's because your park is the wrong habitat for wild rabbits. There aren't enough plants for the rabbits' food and shelter. You see, wild rabbits need a lot of different kinds of plants in their habitat. They need habitat diversity.
Does that mean a rabbit needs lots of different habitats?
Well, no, not really. It only needs one habitat, but it needs a lot of different kinds of plants in its habitat. You see, the tall trees in the park are great for the birds and the squirrels, but rabbits need tall grasses and bushes that are closer to the ground so they can hide from their enemies, like hawks who like to eat rabbits. In the tall grasses and bushes, they can make runways that twist and crisscross so they can hide from their enemies and get away.
I get it. The park doesn't have habitat diversity, only very short grass and tall trees. That's why we only see a few kind of animals there, like the robins and sparrows and crows. But where there's habitat diversity and a lot of different kind of plants, there are rabbits and other animals too.
You're getting the right idea, Winston. You see, in tall grasses, ferns, mosses, and wildflowers, you'll find a turtle or a mouse or a frog. And in the bushes, there's all kinds of different birds like goldfinches or red-winged blackbirds. And the deer like to feed on the bushes, too.
Like my mother's rose bushes.
That's true. Deer sometimes can be a problem. They like to eat rose bushes and other plants that people have in their gardens, like apple trees and grapes. They think sunflowers are pretty tasty, too.
Well, what other wild animals live in habitat that has diversity and lots of plants too, Dr. Simpson?
Well, if you have rabbits in your habitat, you're going to have tall grasses. And when you have tall grasses, you'll have a lot of insects. So when you have insects, chances are you're going to have a lot of insect-eating birds, like warblers, vireos, flycatchers, or scarlet tanagers. Oops, I was talking so much I didn't realize what time it was. I've got a lot of work to do, so if it's okay with you, I'm going to have James show you some chores around here, and I'll just see you next Saturday, okay?
Great.
Okay, great.
Bye, Dr.
Okay,
Simpson.
James? Goodbye. See you next Saturday. Thanks, James. See you
Bye,
later.
Bobby.
Bye-bye.
Come on, guys, and I'll put you to work.
Okay.
Hey, great. Thanks. You guys did a great job.
Thanks.
Well, thank you for letting us help you.
Yeah, that was fun, especially seeing the rabbits.
And the hawks were cool.
Yeah, I noticed you had a library here at the Wildlife Center. Would you mind if we took a look at some of the wildlife books you have?
Not at all. Help yourself.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
See you later. What are we looking at books for?
Worms. We need to learn all about worms.
Worms? What for?
To help Bobby find the right place in the park to let the robin go. The robin will need lots of worms, right?
Yeah.
Right. So we need to find the right place in the park where there are lots of worms, and it won't get hit by a car or eaten by a cat.
That's cool.
Yeah. Hey, you guys, I found something. It says, earthworms are nocturnal animals. That means that they mostly come out at night. During the day, they stay in their burrows with their heads towards the surface of the ground. The reason why you see robins tugging at worms during the day is because worms have tiny bristles that anchor themselves into their burrows in the ground.
But how do we find them if they only come out at night?
Well, it says we look for mounds of earth or castings that we often see on the ground. These are particles of soil swallowed by the worm and then brought to the surface. It is estimated that on 1 acre of ground, there can be 50,000 earthworms.
50,000 worms?
Yeah, 50,000.
Whoa.
Come on, let's go.
Huh?
Go where?
To the park to look for castings.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Guys, this isn't going to work. It's going to take us days to find a place with lots of worms. This park is huge.
We need to have a plan.
Okay, here's our plan. First, we need to find a place as far away from the road and the cars as we can possibly get. Right?
Right.
And furthest from the houses where people's cats live in too.
Right. That would be in the middle of the park.
Perfect. Come on, let's go. Okay, we're the furthest from the cars and the cats. Now everyone spread out and look for castings.
Right.
Oh, right here. I found one. Look.
That's a casting, all right, Tammy. But one's not enough. We need lots of them, remember? Lots of worms.
Here, right under these trees. Thousands of them.
Oh, Vincent, this is perfect. This is perfect. Let's call Dr. Simpson and tell her we found the perfect habitat for our baby robin.
Yeah.
Come on. She's going to be so excited.
Don't forget to tell her how many there are.
Okay. Hi, Dr. Simpson. This is Heather. Guess what? We found the perfect habitat for our baby robin when you let him go. There's lots of worms and...
Well, wait a minute, Heather. How do you know there are a lot of worms?
Well, you know the castings on the ground that the worms leave behind?
Really? Good work. I'm impressed.
And guess what? There's water in the pond to drink, lots of tall trees for shelter, and enough space to fly around safely and so it won't get hit by a car or eaten by a cat.
Sounds like you've thought of everything. Why don't you meet me in the park tomorrow morning around 7 o'clock and we can let the robin go? That's a good time for robins to find food and a place to roost.
Great, we'll be there. Bye.
Bye-bye. Hi, kids. This does look like a good habitat for your robin. I can hear lots of robins in the trees, and that's a good sign. You hear that? That's a robin.
Check out all the castings we found.
Oh, great. I see what you mean. Okay, let's set the robin free right here then, where we know there are plenty of worms and other robins. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Bye, little Robin. Good luck.
Do you think it'll stick around, Dr. Simpson?
Why don't you just call me Bobby?
Do you think it'll stick around, Bobby?
Yeah, I think it's going to be happy here. But you know that robins leave the park in the winter, right? In the winter, the ground freezes over, and it's hard for them to find worms, so they need to fly south where it's warmer and where there's food to be found. But it'll be back in the spring.
Boy, the park will seem empty without our baby robin.
Yeah, compared to the other habitats you were telling us about, this park seems pretty empty anyway. I wish I lived near a habitat that had a lot of different kind of wild animals and plants all year round.
You know, there are parks like that with habitat diversity.
Really?
Yeah. In fact, there's one in New York City called Central Park.
Central Park?
Yeah, it has over 200 different kinds of birds that feed and nest there. And 13 kinds of mammals like rabbits and woodchucks and raccoons and muskrats.
Why can't we have a park like that?
Yeah.
If our park had more diversity, like different kinds of grasses and plants and bushes, then we could have more wild animals that would like to come and live there.
Well, that's true, Heather. It would take a lot of work to turn this park into a habitat with diversity. Why don't you think about that, and we'll talk about it at the Wildlife Center next week.
Oh, look! The robin got a worm!
Great. Well, now that's a good sign that your robin's going to be just fine in the habitat you picked out for him. Thanks for finding him a home.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Okay, I'll see you next week at the Wildlife Center.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Bobby.
What have we here?
Oh, we told all our friends at school about how boring our park is compared to other parks that have habitat diversity, and everybody agreed we want a lot of different kinds of wild animals in our park.
Yeah, so we started the Habitat Club at school, and our first project is to grow all different kinds of plants and grasses, so lots of wild animals would like to come and live there.
So what's this? A model of the park?
Yeah, our Habitat Club made it to show people what our park's going to look like after we're finished. See, here's the park, and here's our school, and here's our pond, and here's all the trees and bushes we're going to grow.
First, we had to figure out what kinds of urban wildlife we wanted to have in our park, like turtles and rabbits and butterflies.
Then we had to figure out what kind of food, water, and shelter the animals would need. Look here in the front, so we can watch from the school window, are all the tall grasses where the rabbits can make their runways, burrows, and hide from their enemies. We're also planting clover for the rabbits.
And we're planting flowers for the butterflies. They like to drink the nectar from the zinnias.
And all kinds of birds like to eat the seeds from flowers, too.
Yeah, and for bushes, we are planting blackberries, blueberries, Juneberry bushes, and holly. Over 100 different kind of birds eat the blackberries. And for the other bushes, they'll become food and shelter for the bluebird, mockingbird, and tanagers.
And we're making bird feeders and houses, too. See?
Yeah.
And we're also planting some more tall trees, like mulberries and cherry trees and junipers, because blue jays and woodpeckers like to eat the fruits.
I'm very impressed. And you know, I think your habitat has enough diversity to make a happy home for some predators, too.
Great! Predators? We weren't counting on predators.
Predators eat other animals, right?
Like Barney, your barn owl.
Right. Well, you know, man's a predator, too.
Yeah, like Tony in our class. He hunts wild turkey every Thanksgiving, and he eats the meat.
Right. And the animals that predators eat are called prey.
Prey? Yeah, like the mice that Barney eats.
You know, chances are if you have mice in your habitat, which I'm sure you will, you'll have a barn owl like Barney, too. Great. Speaking of which, it's dinner time for Barney. You want to help me out?
Oh, yeah.
Great, okay. You want to just leave this stuff here?
Okay.
How come I've never seen a barn owl in Center City before?
Well, that's because they're nocturnal. They only come out at night.
I thought owls lived in the woods.
Well, some owls do, but barn owls live near people. Can you guess why?
I know, because barn owls like to eat mice and rats, and the mice and rats live near people.
That's right. Just because they're called barn owls doesn't mean they just live in barns. They live in a lot of other places, like outside city buildings, underneath bridges, in attics and factories. Remember I told you that Barney used to live in the church steeple downtown.
How many mice does a barn owl eat exactly?
Well, a barn owl is going to hunt constantly every night. It leaves its home around sunset, hunts all night until sunrise. In one night, an owl can catch as many mice as 12 cats can.
Whoa.
That's 10 to 20 mice. And if it has babies, it'll catch even more than that. In a half an hour, it can bring as many as 20 mice to its babies. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Here, little guy.
Just wait right out here. I'm going to go in.
How come owls are such good hunters? They look so slow.
Well, that's because they have such good hearing. They have really long openings in the side of their head, so when they turn their face from side to side, they can hear which direction a sound's coming from. And they can turn their head far better than people can. They can turn it about 270 degrees. That's about like me turning my head from here all the way around this way to the other side. And because they have such good hearing, they're one of the few animals that can hunt in total darkness.
What else makes barn owls such good hunters?
You know the feathers they have around their face? It's called a facial disc, and it works like a satellite dish in that it amplifies the sound that mice and rats make. And thirdly, they have incredible eyesight. They can see as well at night as we can see in the day. Okay, we'll feed these guys now.
Okay.
There. You see, when an owl hunts at night, it flies slowly over an area where it knows it can find mice, like your habitat or a city dump or an alleyway. And it listens carefully for the sound of mice. And when it hears one, it makes a sharp hissing noise or it snaps its beak, which causes the mouse to stay perfectly still, hoping it won't be found. And then it goes in for the attack immediately, striking the mouse with its feet and digging its claws or talons into the mouse and killing it instantly. Then it takes the mouse in its beak and it flies off to a tree or back to its roost to eat it. And it eats the whole thing, one bite, head first.
But if barn owls only come out at night, then how will we know if they're living in our habitat?
Well, that's easy, because you'll have owl pellets. That's the thing an owl spits up after it's eaten.
Yuck, that sounds gross.
Well, it's not gross, really. In fact, yeah, here's a pellet. See? Look here, Tammy.
Oh. It's soft and dry. And it doesn't smell.
Right. An owl will spit up about one of these a day. It's forced upward through the stomach until it shoots out the owl's mouth. And it carries the remains of about 5 different mice that the owl couldn't digest. It's got all the parts in it, like the bones, teeth, claws, and fur of the mice. Here, if we break it up here, this gray stuff here is the fur.
Whoa.
That's neat. But we're gonna need a lot of mice in our habitat to keep a barn owl alive.
It's true, Winston. But the more mice you have, the more barn owls you have, and the more barn babies that'll be born.
Well, From the fruit from our blackberry, blueberry, and juniper trees, I'm sure we'll attract lots of mice for the barn owls.
Yeah.
And one thing that barn owls don't need are the poisons and pesticides that people put out to feed the mice and rats. If an owl eats a mouse that's been poisoned by a pesticide, it'll die. That's why so many barn owls die young, because they eat mice that have been poisoned by pesticides. And another problem for barn owls are cars. You see, a barn owl flies rather slowly, and it hunts for mice a lot of times along the roadside because that's where the mice are. And when the cars are traveling fast, they can easily hit and kill an owl. In fact, that's what happened to Barney. He got hit by a car and both of his wings were broken, and now he can't fly anymore.
Cars and pesticides are a limiting factor for barn owls, right? Just like cars and cats are a limiting factor for our baby robin, right?
Yeah.
Good for you, Winston. You've been doing your homework. Another limiting factor for barn owls is loss of habitat. Anytime they tear down an old building or a barn and turn it into a parking lot, the barn owl doesn't have anywhere to go for shelter.
We'll make sure there's no limiting factors for barn owls. We'll make sure no one puts pesticides in our park. There'll be lots of mice, so the barn owls can stay right in the park and won't have to go near the road and get hit by cars.
Good plan.
Yes.
What about Pearl, the bald eagle? She's a predator, too. Can she come and live in our habitat when she gets better?
Well, I'm afraid Pearl would be very unhappy in your habitat, Tammy. You see, bald eagles are not urban wildlife. They have very special needs in their habitat that they just can't find in the cities. They're very picky about where they live. It's getting harder and harder for them to find wild areas where they can set up a home. That's one reason why there aren't a lot of bald eagles left in the United States.
Is that why they're an endangered species? Because it's so hard for them to find the right home?
Well, that's one reason, yes. There used to be bald eagles in every state in the United States. And now there's only one place that you can find a lot of bald eagles, and that's Alaska.
Alaska? We have to go all that way to Alaska to set her free?
Well, we won't have to go all the way to Alaska, but we will have a tough job finding the right home for Pearl. We'll need to find one of the few places in the United States that has the right habitat for bald eagles. And she'll be ready to release soon, so we need to find it. She's been exercising and getting a lot stronger. In fact, we've had her on an exercise program for over a month now. That's why the cages are so big, so she can fly around and get strong again. And if we didn't exercise her, her joints would get all stiff and she'd get fat and flabby and she wouldn't be able to fly around and catch her food. How long do you suppose her wingspan is? From the tip of her left wing to the tip of her right wing.
Longer than me?
A lot longer. She's about 8 feet long. That's 2 feet longer than I am. And she has such a wide wingspan so she can soar high in the sky and fly distances to hunt for her food like fat fish or duck. And sometimes they fly so high you can't even see them from the ground. Their eyesight is so sharp that they can spot their prey a mile away. When they see a fish right underneath the surface of the water, they dive down and thrust their feet forward. And they have talons on the ends of their feet that are about 1.5 inches long, which they grab the fish with. And if the fish is real slippery, then it has little tiny spikes on the end of its toe, which it tighten its grip with. And then it takes the fish over to a tree, and with its very powerful 2-inch beak, tears the food open and eats it. And most of the time, after an eagle gets its prey, it lets out this sharp cry, just kind of to tell everybody what a good fisherman it is.
So how many fish will Pearl need to catch every day?
Well, she needs to eat about 1 pound of food a day. That's about 2 good-sized fish. But before the winter comes, when she knows it's going to be harder to find fish because the water will freeze, she needs to store up energy for the winter. So at that time, she'll eat about 6 good-sized fish a day. When the water freezes, she flies south until she finds unfrozen water. And the reason she needs to store up so much food before winter is because she knows that she's going to have to fly long distances to find food in the winter. And she can travel as much as 200 miles a day. And then in the spring, she goes back to where she had her nest before, and she starts a new family.
And then she'll need even more fish to feed her babies. Won't it be hard to find her a habitat with enough fish?
Yeah, it'll be hard to find her habitat with that much food. And also, all the other special needs she has in her habitat, like water, shelter, and space. She needs very clean water. It can't have any pesticides or pollution in it, or she'll get sick from the fish she eats. And for shelter, she needs tall trees to build her nest in. And because of her wingspan and all the distances she has to travel to find food, she needs a lot of open space. And another thing that bald eagles need is to be far away from people so that they can have peace and quiet to raise their babies in.
And she needs to be far away from irresponsible people that might shoot her again, too,
That's
right?
right.
No wonder it's going to be hard to find the right home for Pearl. She needs so many things that are hard to find, like clean water, open spaces, and no people.
Yeah. We don't want to keep her in this cage any longer than we have to. She's going to be ready to take care of herself in a few weeks, so we need to find a home for Pearl soon. Hey, kids.
Hi, Bobby.
What are you doing here? It's not Saturday, is it?
No, we're reading about bald eagles. Our new project in the Habitat Club is to help you find a new home for Pearl.
Really?
We need to know more about her habitat so we can make a list of things she'll need. Here's what we have so far. What do you think, Bobby?
Well, let's see. You have the 4 things that every animal needs to have a good habitat: food, water, shelter, and space. And under food, you have fish and ducks. Under water, clean and unpolluted. Tall trees for shelter and a lot of space. Great. Looks like you've got a good start on this.
What? You mean there's more?
Well, you have all the most important basics, but you can add a few things. Like under food, you want to add some dead animals, because when they can't find fish, an eagle will eat animals that have already died. That's why they're called scavengers, because they eat dead animals too, especially in the winter when the live fish are harder to find. But most of the time they eat fish.
What about water? Anything else besides clean and unpolluted?
Well, in your studies, did you happen to come across anything about pollutions that will kill eagles?
Yeah, we learned about DDT. DDT is a poison. That's why there aren't that many bald eagles left, because DDT got in the water that fish lived in. You see, when a mother eagle ate a fish that was poisoned by DDT, the eggs in her nest would crack before they were ready to be born. Without babies, there weren't as many eagles. Now, the use of DDT is against the law in the United States.
That's right. And what about another poison that kills bald eagles and is against the law too?
I know. Over 100 bald eagles have died from lead poisoning. Now it's against the law for duck hunters to use lead shot in their gun. Because if an eagle eats an animal that ate a lead pellet, then the lead poisons and kills the eagle.
That's right. And there's another kind of pollution that's especially dangerous for bald eagles. Do you know what that is, Tammy?
Acid rain. It turns lakes into vinegar and kills all the fish.
That's right. And what happens is, The smoke from a smokestack in a factory pollutes the air. And then when it rains, the water in the lakes will turn into a vinegar-like substance and kills millions of fish. And when there aren't any fish left in an eagle's habitat, she needs to go somewhere else to find a home.
Okay, got it. Under shelter, we have tall trees. How tall do they have to be exactly?
Very tall. They're about 100 feet from the ground up. That's the size of a 10-story building. She'll pick the tallest tree that sticks out way above all the other trees in the forest to build her nest and raise her babies. And sometimes the nests get very, very big.
Yeah, we read about one that weighed 2 tons and it was as big as a car.
That's right. And the reason they get so big is because an eagle will return to the same nest every spring and just keep adding more and more materials to it. And in the winter, when the weather gets bad, they need to find shelter in trees and wooded areas away from the wind. And another reason they need tall trees is to use it as a lookout spot and a place to rest. And another thing you might want to put under shelter is peace and quiet. Because an eagle won't make a nest or raise its babies if it's too noisy or too close to people. They're very private.
Well, under space, we just have a lot. How much space do we need exactly?
Well, you need enough space so that the eagle can travel and find food safely. And also so it doesn't feel crowded by people.
And not get shot by some irresponsible person.
And remember that an eagle will travel hundreds of miles in the winter looking for its fish, and then return to its nest in the spring. So not only do you need to find space that's safe around the nest, but it also needs to be safe for where it travels in the winter, too.
Good night. That's a lot of space. Where will we ever find that much space?
And enough fish, clean water, tall trees, and peace and quiet.
And a place where we know she'll be safe and not get shot again.
I remember last year some people came and talked to our science class about safe places for endangered species. They don't keep the animals in cages, they just let them roam free, but they watch them to make sure that they're safe and protected.
Was it called a wildlife refuge by any chance?
That's it. They have them all over the United States, right?
That's right. We've got several in this state, too. Many of them were established as protection for endangered species like pearl. Let me show you a map. These are all the wildlife refuges in the United States. There's over 440 of them all across the country.
Wow! Look how many refuges there are in Alaska.
That's the place where you said they had lots of bald eagles.
That's right. But I think it's a little too far for us to travel and release Pearl.
How about this one? It's close to us.
Well, yeah, but that's not a national wildlife refuge. It's a state wildlife area.
But Bobby, the question is, does it have the right habitat for Pearl?
Well, I suppose we could go there and find out. Do you have time right now?
Yeah.
Shall we do it?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me go make a phone call and let them know that we're coming. Okay?
Okay.
I'll be right back.
Hi.
Hi.
How you doing?
These are my friends, Winston, Tammy, and Heather.
How you doing?
Good. How about yourself?
I know you, Mr. Kanishi. I talked to you on the telephone, remember, about a baby robin?
Oh, yeah. How did everything turn out?
We set him free 2 weeks ago.
I'm glad to hear that. What brings you out here today?
Well, it's about our bald eagle Pearl we've been rehabilitating. We thought maybe your state wildlife area would be a good place to release her. She's about ready.
We were wondering if you had any bald eagles out here already.
Yeah, we had 2 pairs of bald eagles that nested on a refuge every spring. We even had 4 babies that hatched.
Do they still come back here? Bald eagles return to the same nest every year.
No, unfortunately, they haven't been to this refuge for 2 years. We have lots of other kinds of wildlife, but no bald eagles this year.
Maybe there's something wrong with the habitat here.
Yeah. Here's a list of what bald eagles need. Does your refuge have all these things?
Well, we have a lot of fish and other things for the eagles to eat, so that's not why they disappeared.
What about your water? Does it have DDT, lead poisoning, or acid rain in it?
No, we haven't had any traces of DDT in this refuge for years, and we don't allow the hunters to utilize lead shot in their guns. And luckily, acid rain isn't a problem here yet. I think the problem with our habitat is right over here.
You mean shelter? You have tall trees, right?
That's not exactly what I meant. Come on, let's go. I'll show you what the problem is.
Should we take my truck?
That sounds good. Let's go.
Hop in.
You see, on this side of the reservoir, where we're standing now, is a refuge. We'll always have the tall trees and the wetlands for the ducks and the geese. There's a flock of Canada geese right now. But that side of the reservoir doesn't belong to the state wildlife area. They used to have a lot of tall trees and wetlands on that side of the reservoir too. But about 2 years ago, about the time that the eagles left, they started taking down all the trees, built all those houses and the shopping mall. Without the trees and because of all the people, I'm afraid the eagles decided to go somewhere else.
I don't blame them for leaving. It's much too noisy.
Gosh, we hoped this would be the right home for Pearl, but she needs peace and quiet to raise her babies.
What are we going to do?
Don't worry, Tammy. We'll keep looking until we find a place for her. The right place.
I wonder where the eagles went when they left this place.
If we knew that, then maybe, just maybe we can find a home for Pearl, too.
I think I might be able to help you answer that question, Heather.
Really, Mr. Kanishi? You know where they went? How?
We track them with radios. You see, since bald eagles are an endangered species, we try to gather as much information as we can to learn more about them. So when they're on the refuge, we capture them, put radio transmitters on them, we release them, and then we follow the radio signals to see where they go.
So by radio, you know where the eagles are now?
Well, I can tell you that the last time that we checked, which was about a month ago, we picked up the signal from the male bald eagle. He's living on a national wildlife refuge just about 50 miles north of here. If you have time, I can get the radio and we can go up there and see if we can pick up his signal.
That would be great. Can we go? Can we go?
Of course, we can go.
Right.
Cool.
Wow, what are they? They're beautiful.
Those are teal. Now, they come here every year about this time. They like habitat like this with all the wetlands, and because they like to eat on the wild rice that they grow here.
Hey, it's beeping. Cool.
What does that mean?
It means we're very lucky, and we may have found the male bald eagle. Let's go down by the river and take a look.
Just the male? What about the other? Where is she?
Come on, Tammy.
Whoa, you guys
down there. That means there's definitely enough fish here for the eagles to eat.
Oh, yes. The river's full of carp and suckers and other kinds of fish that eagles love.
Hey, the beeping's getting louder. We must be getting closer.
Look, there he is. You see him way up there in those tall trees?
Good night. Get a look at that nest. It must be as big as a Volkswagen.
If that's the father, I wonder where the mother is.
If it's nesting, it must be quite enough for him here. And we know there's enough fish. What about pollution in the water, Mr. Kanishi?
Well, I think there's no problem with DDT or acid rain here. And there's no problems with lead poisoning because they don't allow hunters to use lead shot in their guns.
For shelter, the trees are definitely tall enough.
What about space?
Yeah, when the eagles leave the refuge in the winter, where will they go? And can they get there and back again safely?
Well, that'll be hard to predict, Winston. But I can tell you that when they do fly south from here, there are a lot of other refuges for them to stop to eat and rest. And anyone who tries to bother a bald eagle will be arrested. So they should be pretty safe.
Sounds like a pretty good home for Pearl to me.
You mean we found a home for Pearl?
Well, maybe. Do you think we could come back here Saturday and release her right here on the refuge?
Well, I need to call the wildlife refuge manager and make the arrangements and call you if it's okay. But I think it's safe to say that you probably finally found a home for your Pearl.
All right.
All right.
How you doing?
Hi.
How you doing today? Just fine. So this is Pearl, eh?
Yep, here she is. Isn't she beautiful?
Hi, Pearl. You're going to be one lucky bird today. I'd like for you all to meet Carol. Carol's a researcher from the university who does work with the bald eagles.
Hi.
Hi,
Carol. Nice to meet you.
Good to meet all of you. Can I take a look? Hi, girl. Nice to see you again.
Again? You mean you already know Pearl?
Yes, I met her here on the refuge 2 years ago.
You mean this is where Pearl came from? This is where she always lived?
It's always good to release eagles in their original home, if you can.
Then that was Pearl's nest we saw. And that was her husband we followed on the radio, right, Dottie?
I guess so. Well, are we ready to let her go?
Yeah.
Would you like to say goodbye to her?
Bye, Pearl.
Good luck, girl.
We'll be watching out for you.
She looks strong. Both of her wings look great. I think Pearl's gonna be fine here. Just fine.